r/NoSleep. Posted by UM Patrick. I need your help. My fiance's work harvests humans. When I had the idea to surprise my fiancée with lunch at her work today, I didn't expect to find multiple dismembered corpses and live human captives. I wanted to surprise my fiancée at her work today. I have been making an extra effort to be spontaneous and show how much she means to me. That's how I came up with the idea of surprising her with some of our favorite sushi for lunch. As I entered the front reception of her work, a pep in my step, I was surprised to see the front reception desk vacant. I rang the bell on the reception desk, but it went answered. I called out and was again met with silence. I attempted to call my fiancée, which went straight to her voicemail. I decided to go see if she was in her office. Reaching her office, I found the door wide open and the room empty. I put the food on her desk and proceeded down the hallway. I had never been past the reception or her office before, so I really had no idea where I was going. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed how eerily quiet the building was. This shouldn't have been alarming. The staff at the surgery consisted only of my fiancée, her lab assistant, and the receptionist. I walked down the narrow corridor, passing multiple locked doors, until I came to an open door with a sign stating Laboratory 2 on it. I knew I should not have been snooping through a private surgery, but given my fiancée was in charge here, I figured there wasn't too much harm in it. Pushing the door open, I called out, "Hello, Lou? Babe, it's me, I brought you some lunch. Surprise." No one responded, and as I turned to leave the room, a shape on the bench caught my eye. The room was dimly lit, so I fumbled around the wall till I found a light switch. With the room now illuminated, I took in the sight before me. Up on the bench lay a body, partially covered by a white sheet. The body was missing its right arm and right leg. I noticed the eyes were removed as well as the top of the skull. I don't know why, but curiosity forced me to walk over and look inside the skull. I am still unsure what I expected to see. I guess a brain or blood or something. The skull was an empty void. Whatever bits normally occupied a human skull were absent from this cadaver. Casting my eyes over the room, I found jars and cases of various parts lining the benches and shelves. Brains, eyes, hearts. Even whole limbs and heads. The room looked like an auto spare parts store, but of the human variety. The deeper I delved, the stranger things became. Several of the human samples were disfigured. Bulbous growths like barnacles covered some. Reptilian-looking scales grew on others. What I was seeing in this room, all these human experiments, made me tremble. It gave off a real Frankenstein-type vibe. This undoubtedly felt ethically wrong. What type of research was my fiancée doing here? The sound of voices in the hallway broke me from my trance. Looking for a way out, I found another door at the back of the room. Luckily, the door was unlocked and it led me out into what looked like a small warehouse. Stumbling through the darkness, I hid behind a large timber crate. The voices grew louder, getting closer. The most unsettling thing was that they were both unmistakably male. All the staff at this small surgery were female as far as I knew. They were talking amongst themselves in the other room. I could only make out parts of what they were saying. Something about meeting a deadline or they risk losing their funding. Stealthily, I made my way a bit closer to the door, hoping to better hear what they were discussing. I was finally within earshot when something unbelievably strong grabbed my shirt and jerked me around. I looked down at the hand that had just grabbed me, sticking out between a thick barred steel cage. Light brown scales covered the hand, spreading halfway up the forearm. Normal human skin resumed, leading up to a muscular torso covered in scars and stitches. I stared in confusion at what stood before me, struggling to make sense of what I was looking at. The person grunted at me, and that is when I first took notice of their face. Their mouth had been crudely stitched shut. Scales similar to those on their hands sporadically dotted their face. Where their nose should have been were two small oval holes. Their dark brown hair was matted and thin. A large scar spanned the circumference of their head, starting slightly above their brow line. Their eyes were completely orange with large black pupils. They looked like the eyes you would expect to find on a large mammal. Although the eyes lacked any resemblance to those of a human, I was positive I could see desperation in them. This captured soul was asking, no pleading, for my help. "What happened to you?" I asked. The captive creature dropped its head and pointed to the room I had just come from. "Did they do this to you?" It nodded a reply of yes. "I'll get you out of here. Let me find something to open your cage," I said as I started looking around the room for anything that may be useful. Using my phone's torch, I slowly explored the small warehouse. I was horrified to find he wasn't the only prisoner here. Multiple cages lined the room. All freakishly unique in their own ways. A tiny man with antlers and patches of fur. A young woman with two extra small arms protruding from the sides of her shoulders. They all had stitched mouths and pleading eyes of despair. As I took my next step, I felt my footing give and stumbled. I had tripped on a mop and bucket. It happened in slow motion. As I fell forwards, a cry left my mouth, followed by an almighty bang as I knocked over a bench of utensils on my way to the floor. As I lay on the cold concrete floor, I struggled to regain my bearings. I must have smacked my head on the way down as the room was spinning all around me. My ears were ringing and dots clouded my vision. What was that noise? Did one of those samples get loose out the back? I heard one of the male voices yelling out to the other. I scrambled to my feet and ran, passing more cages, all in capturing more unique figures. Several normal people were also bound and gagged in separate cells, undoubtedly being stored until they too were subjected to similar forms of torture and experimentation. I crashed through a fire exit at the back of the building and ran for my life. I haven't been home yet. I can't face my fiancée knowing what she is involved in. I could pretend I didn't see anything, but I left the sushi on her desk so she will know I had stopped by. I'm tempted to go to the authorities, but at the same time I'm conflicted because I love her. What should I do? What would you do? Posted by Patrick. We tried to rob a gang, the Vikings. I run a large recreational drug manufacturing operation. For legal/personal safety reasons, I will have to leave out a fair few details. What I can tell you is that I got caught up in all this by accident. Whilst in college completing my pharmaceutical studies, I met some guys at a bar who offered me a job making various types of recreational drugs. The money was too enticing to refuse. Flash forward 10 years and I now oversee the operation. Our main client is a very well-known biker gang. We offer them a large discount and in return they provide us protection and a constant buyer. We have an agreement to sell small amounts to other buyers as long as they are not a chance of becoming direct competitors. One of our small clients, a bunch of tall Scandinavian guys who call themselves the Vikings, had started up their own production as well as continuing to buy from us. Word got out that they were starting to flood the market with their cheaper, but poor quality, product. This didn't sit too well with my biker friends. The club's vice president reached out to me, requiring some assistance. They wanted us to set up a large buy with the Vikings. Simultaneously, the bikers would set up an ambush, making sure to send the Vikings a message, "Stay out of our business." This whole thing put me in a really awkward position. Once word of this got out to our other small clients, they would question our loyalty. But in the end, we were at mercy to do what the bikers wanted. We arranged a good-sized deal for 4 weeks' time, $50,000 worth of product. The deal was planned to go down in the usual spot, a large warehouse normally used as storage for a construction company. The bikers scoped the place out ahead of time and planned to set up an ambush. My role was just to turn up with the product and do the deal like normal. En route to the warehouse, I started to get a sense of unease. As per normal, I only had myself and 2 guards. Obviously we were all armed, but I've never had to use mine. My 2 guards were both ex-military and had combat experience. I had faith in them protecting me, but I was worried if it popped off we may get caught in the crossfire. We parked in the warehouse and waited for the Vikings gang members to arrive. I started getting anxious. The knowledge that there were close to 20 armed bikers hidden throughout the warehouse did little to quell the bile building up in my throat. The Vikings pulled into the warehouse and 4 tall blonde guys climbed out of the black Mercedes. One of them, who I dealt with in the past, carried a duffel bag, presumably with our cash in it. We met and exchanged the product for the cash. Once I had the duffel bag in my hand, the bikers came out and surrounded the 4 Scandinavians. The bikers' attempt at intimidation didn't go well. The situation escalated quickly. A shot was fired from point blank and hit one of the Vikings right between the eyes. As he dropped to the ground, shots started coming from every direction, the sound deafening as it echoed throughout the warehouse. Panic-stricken, I ran for cover. I found shelter behind several pallets of bricks. As I watched through the gaps, I saw something unlike anything I've ever witnessed. The Viking that had been shot square between the eyes slowly rose to his feet. A guttural roar erupted from their mouth as they tilted their head to the sky. Arms stretched out wide. Their hands started to grow. Muscles bulged from their forearms, followed by their upper arms and shoulders. Their shirt tore and ripped as more of their muscles ballooned in size. They let out a howl, as their face started to morph. Dark gray fur grew out of their skin and their face changed shape, large canine teeth grew from their mouth. After everything I saw, it still seems stupid to say this, but they turned into a werewolf. I noticed the other 3 gang members were undergoing the same transformation, all the while absorbing heavy fire from the surrounding bikers. The bullets seemed to have no effect. Bewildered, I looked on as the wolves tore through the bikers. They were like wild animals playing with their prey. sinking their teeth into the bikers' necks and tearing them apart with enormous razor-sharp clawed hands. I watched one wolf pick a biker up by the head, its claws piercing straight through its skull, squashing the skull like an old tomato. It then threw the limp body aside like it was a toy doll. Several of the bikers tried to make a run for it, but one of the wolves effortlessly closed the gap. The way the beast covered the ground was like a cheetah chasing a wounded gazelle. One foul swipe of its enormous paw took out the first biker. The sound of crunching bones echoed around the warehouse as the biker was flung through the air. I watched on as the wolves slaughtered the other fleeing bikers with ease. They never stood a chance. The wolves now had the only exit covered. We had been caught in our own trap. One wolf stood guard at the exit while the other three started searching through the warehouse, finishing off the surviving bikers. I knew it wouldn't be long till they found me. I attempted to move from my hiding spot but couldn't muster the courage. I was frozen in place, terrified knowing my death was imminent. It didn't take long for the wolves to sniff out the remaining survivors, and it was clear they took great joy in slaughtering each one of them. I cowered in fear, wondering how long till they found me, when an earth-shattering roar bellowed from above. Not my proudest moment, I broke down in tears. I slowly turned around to be faced with one of the beasts, standing at least 8 feet tall. The beast's mouth contorted in a grimace, 5-inch-long canines protruded, dripping human blood. Its breath was sickening, the smell of carrion strong. It picked me up and dragged me out to the open part of the warehouse. Another one of the wolves walked over and I watched in trepidation as the two wolves morphed back into human form. The taller of the two, who I believed to be in charge, looked at me bemusedly. With a smile he said to me, "You work for us now. Don't make the same mistake twice. We will be in touch soon. Now go before I have a change of heart." You best believe I ran out of there as fast as possible. It has now been 24 hours since the incident and I am still trying to process what I saw. Hopefully sharing my story with you all will have some therapeutic benefits. Mostly I'm anxiously awaiting contact from my new employer. I will let you know how it goes.